We have zero practices for what feels.
Hey everyone, can you hear me? Can I get a wave? I got a thumbs up from Samantha. We got Travis on. Good to see you, Travis. Still looking good.
Thumbs up from Lisa and Isaac. Excuse me, Dr. Isaac Jones. And I see some people laughing at my making fun of Isaac, so they clearly can hear me. That's awesome. Perfect. Tony, what I love best about your background is it's like it's one of those pictures of evolution of man, and it's like you're in the third stage of evolution. Kind of nice. I like it.
So much more growing to do.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
And Lindsay. Hello, Lindsay.
Hi, Jason.
Which I think we have a call Friday, don't we?
We do.
Okay, I forgot. Now I remember.
Make sure that calls on your calendar, Jason.
I'm writing it.
I think it's nice to actually be able to see you, Lindsay. We've talked on the phone, but we've never seen each other.
It's true.
It's nice.
And it's been a while.
It has been a while, but it's good to see you. And Bob and Jim.
Isaiah, we got Isaiah Henkel.
Mr. Yoko. Nice.
Isaiah was using cam but shut it off, which is fair enough.
Nice.
And Clay is creeping.
It's because Clay and Isaiah haven't gotten dressed yet today. So that's fine. It's all good.
I don't know if I should allow Clay on this call. I don't know if he. Oh, there he is in his little McMansion.
Nice. Yeah. Little is the wrong word to use in the palace that is the Clay Air campus and compound.
I just came to say hi to Isaiah and Lindsay.
Clay, I almost forgot about your new San Diego place. I'm coming to California in a couple of weeks, so maybe I'll email you separately.
He has lots of rooms,
Yeah, having had the pleasure of staying at Clay's place, if you find yourself on the West Coast, it is worth a visit. They have a zip line. They have this amazing pool. Let me sing the praises of Shea Clay. It's pretty awesome.
I was just with Dan Martell yesterday. He was telling me how great it was. So. Yeah. All right. So everybody, if you could turn off your microphones, I'll leave mine on for a minute until I pass this over to Joey. So let's see who still has their microphone on. Everybody is off. Thank you, Bob. Jim, I don't know if there's feedback from you, but if you can put yours off. There's a 614. Actually, I think I can mute it on my side, no? I can. Ha! You have no choice. I'm muting you all.
It pays to be in control.
You animals. All right, hold on. Jim. Oh, it's so quiet now. It's so peaceful. All right. Well, I am excited. This is our second virtual roundtable. As many of you know, we did the first one with Philip McKernan, which turned out to be a huge success. This one's going to be a little different in the sense that
it's not going to be nearly as successful. Like, let's just be clear.
We got Mr. John Bowen.
Hey, Jason.
All right, let me just mute these. So yeah, if you could just throw your things on mute. So yeah, we had the one with Philip. Turned out it was fantastic. Whoops, I actually asked Jim to come online. And this one's going to be a little different because the goal for these originally was to kind of kick these virtual roundtables off with a 20-minute, 30-minute kind of best practice, that kind of stuff. And with Philip was a little different because what we were doing, we were kind of soaking in some questions that we went through before at Mastermind Talks itself. But the virtual roundtable turned out to be fantastic. I know Travis was on it. Chris Yoko was on it as well. So really looking forward to this one. Just a little bit of context. So for those of you who don't know, Joey is one of my closest friends. He won the first Mastermind Talks as the best talk as voted by the audience. Not only did he win that event, beating some very, very well-known, very big-name speakers, he had twice the amount of votes of the second-place winner. And I didn't say that publicly originally in fear of hurting people's feelings. But Joey's just an absolutely world-class presenter. But prior to being this world-class speaker that he is today, he used to speak about personal branding and would run workshops for 10 plus years. And Joey was part of our retreat program for 2 years when we had it running. And when we did a New York retreat, there was some people who had interest in the group, and that group was like $20,000 a year, an amazing group of individuals. Some people had interest in personal brand. So I said, well, Joey, would you be interested in doing just like a quick kind of workshop for like an hour, just to almost keep people busy, because I didn't know what else to kind of plug in there.
I was filler, just for all of you paying attention. Hey, Joe, we have a lot of talented speakers coming, but we have this extra hour to kill. Can you just do something?
Well, to my surprise, just like Joey surprised me at Mastermind Talks, it was absolutely phenomenal. Not what I expected at all. When I heard the word personal branding back then, before I started getting actually, familiar with Joey's stuff, I always felt like it didn't apply to me. I don't want to be a speaker. I don't have the intention of becoming a big name or something like that. Once I did that little short workshop exercise, I realized that personal brand, really, we are already a personal brand. So it's very important to identify what your personal brand is, and almost not only identify, but be able to kind of create from a place of awareness. So really excited to do this workshop, this virtual roundtable with Joey. Just one housekeeping thing. It will be recorded. I will share it with you, just like what we did with the Philip McKernan one. The reason we don't kind of share it with everybody is because we want great attendance on these calls, and we want everybody to be just involved and very active for these virtual roundtables. So besides that, there is a group chat. From what I gathered, knowing Joey, this will be very interactive, and there'll probably be opportunities to kind of pitch him questions during it and that kind of stuff. So feel free to use the group chat. I'll monitor that. But besides that, I will give the floor to Mr. Joey Coleman.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Let me see. We're going to try to do a screen share, because I have some because those of you that know me, it wouldn't be hanging out with me if we didn't have some visuals. So I've got some slides. Let me toggle here and see if we can do a little screen share.
That's it. Perfect.
All right. Perfect. So you guys can see that, I presume? Slick, and I can still see most of you, although I did lose the chat window. So Jason, you can help me out if there are questions coming in via chat, and we'll kind of go through there. Awesome. So as Jason said, first of all, so excited that you guys made some time out of your day to jump on the call and talk a little bit about personal branding. As Jason said, this is something that's been very near and dear to my heart. And I actually kind of stumbled across it in a random way, in the sense that, as some of you know my story, I was a criminal defense lawyer, and actually right after law school, before I started practicing law, I did Fortune 500 consulting and sales. Then I became a criminal defense lawyer. Then I taught at executive education courses. Then I ran a division of a promotional products company. Then I started a company designing logos and websites and ad campaigns. And then I became a professional speaker. So I had all these different stops along the path. And what I recognized is that the story of Joey, not to make it all about me, but this is where the kind of the genesis of this came from, was kind of confusing to people who didn't know me, and people who knew me from a previous aspect of my life. I still get phone calls to this day from people that are in the back of cop cars because they think I'm still a criminal defense lawyer, even though I'm not. And so the question becomes, well, how do you create a personal brand that can transcend your interest and can allow you to really tap into what is fantastic about you, what is special about you, what is unique about you, and that you can then present that in a way that lets not only other people understand very clearly who you are, what you do, etc., but that when they find themselves in a situation where you are the right fit for either the problem they're facing, the opportunity they have, the circumstance they're in, that immediately they think of you. And that's really, in my own personal opinion, what the goal of a personal brand is. It's to have such clarity, such understanding, and kind of such a package around yourself that when these opportunities present themselves, people immediately know, I need to call Joey, I need to call Jason, I need to call Steve, I need to call Sarah, I need to call Lisa, whoever it is, that they immediately think of you in this context. So we're going to go ahead and start our presentation by looking at, let's see, there we go. And we got the slide transition, right? So you see, we're going to start with a pop quiz. And Jason, you have to help me again because you can see the box. So our pop quiz, this is your first opportunity to be interactive. We're a total of 2 slides into the presentation, and we're going to start doing that. So the pop quiz is going to start with a single name. So I'm going to show you a picture of someone, and I want you to type the one-word name that applies to that person. And Jason will let me know who types it the fastest.
So
all right?
Travis just got share. He wrote cheer, but share is fine.
Travis can somehow see the slides that other people can. Are you guys all looking at the
I can see in present. I don't know if everybody's seen presenter mode.
Oh, everybody's seeing presenter mode? Cheaters. All right, stop sharing. Hang on a second. This is going to be much more effective. Travis, I love the enthusiasm. This is going to be much more effective if you guys can't see presentation mode. Let's see if I can reduce the screen. Right, you can probably still see both, right? Oh, the joys of tech and adventures. Give me 1 second. Now can you only see one screen?
I just see black personally, and I think that's.
Does everybody else just see black? Awesome. So sorry, guys. This is not.
You have people answering your next slides as well.
Oh, good. Yeah, they're already moving ahead. Perfect. Perfect. Great. This is brilliant. Let's see. As somebody who doesn't regularly use Zoom, let's try this. Still black screen, right?
No, I can see share.
And only share.
And only share.
Thank you, Jason. All right, great. So Travis got share. Boom. All right, awesome. Next one, let's see who can guess this one. Cheaters who already saw it. Let's see if we can type fast. Jason, you let me know when somebody types the right answer.
We had Travis with Tiger.
Travis, yet again.
5 minutes ago.
Travis is letting us know that his personal brand is about competition. All right, excellent. Tiger. How about this one? Let me know when we have an answer, Jason.
Travis was the first person.
And what did Travis say?
Trump. As Dr. Isaac Jones.
I'm glad you said Trump, not the Donald, right? Because we're going for a one-word single name. All right.
Isaiah says the president.
Nice. Great. Isaiah, we'll have a separate conversation after the call about that. All right. How about this? Let's talk about a unique, so we did some names. Let's talk about a uniquely specific skill. All right. Michael Jordan, what was his uniquely specific skill?
So Lindsay says dunking.
Dunking, exactly. Lindsay, that's exactly what I was going for. Now, what's really interesting here is lots of times when I'm sharing this, people will say, well, basketball. And don't get me wrong, Michael Jordan was fantastic at basketball, but there's, I think it's ridiculous, some debate as to whether he was the best basketball player of all time. And so because there is a little bit of debate, I think there's no debate that he is absolutely world-class and the greatest at dunking of all time. So this is what we're looking for, and Lindsay, you modeled it beautifully. Specific, very clear, unique skill example. Let's do another one. Yo-Yo Ma.
So in terms
What do we have as the unique skill, Jason?
So we have Bob and Travis both said violin. Chris says name that is also a children's toy.
Nice.
We got cello
What is the
from
unique? Cello. Who said cello?
Isaiah Dr. Isaac Jones.
All right, there we go. So he actually is well known for being one of the world's prominent cello players. Good guess on violin, fast to type in, but alas, it's the bigger version of the violin. It's the cello. Okay, and last but not least, Steve Jobs.
iPhone design, innovation, creator, inventor. These are coming in real fast. Product design, innovation, think different. Apple.
What was he world class at? He did this better than anyone else.
Think different, vision, marketing, vision, speaker, user experience.
I'll take speaker, presenting, right?
That was Tony Guerrieri.
Tony, perfect. No surprise, right? Tony, who's a fantastic presenter himself. The thing about Steve Jobs being a presenter, yes, he's an amazing innovator and an amazing marketer, but again, there can be some debate. What no one could hold a candle to when it came to Steve Jobs is taking the stage and presenting a new product launch or a new offering. Like, stop and think about the fact that as a company, billions of people, millions certainly, if not billions in the replay, would watch Steve Jobs present and launch a new product. There's no other company in the world that when they have their annual meeting or when they do a new product launch, that they're crashing web servers because so many people are watching it. It's because he was an absolutely brilliant presenter. I've heard it anecdotally, I don't know if it's accurate, that Steve believed that you needed to spend 1 hour of practice for every 1 minute on stage. So stop and think about how much time he put into practicing a 60-minute keynote was 60 hours of on-stage practice. Not, hey, I'm thinking about it, not, hey, what is this? It's, no, I'm on stage with a clicker, running through slides, getting the pattern, getting the flow. The reason I give these examples is because these guys, Michael Jordan, Yo-Yo Ma, and Steve Jobs, for example, and we could talk about thousands of people, were known for these uniquely specific skills. All right, last but not least, reputation. All right, so when we think of honest, who is the first person that comes to mind?
Abe, Donald
Abe
Trump.
Lincoln, right? Honest. Thank you, Isaiah. Stop answering Trump, Isaiah. No more play for Isaiah. So yeah, Honest Abe, right? Abe Lincoln, associated with the word honesty. Let's do another one. Smart. When we think of the word smart, who's the first name that comes to mind?
Einstein.
Albert Einstein, right? Now, again, lots of other people that have been smart in the history of the world, but isn't it interesting that Abe Lincoln has cornered the market on honesty and Albert Einstein has cornered the market on smart? So why do we talk about this? Well, we're going to cover 3 things in our conversation today, right? We're going to cover the topic of what is personal branding. We're also going to talk about what is your personal brand. And finally, we're going to talk about how can you share your personal brand with others. So I think it's important to give us a context. And I should say at the outset, as you probably picked on up already, we're definitely an interactive conversation today. If you have any questions, if I'm going along, don't hesitate to type them in the chat. Jason will share them. We're also going to have a Q&A period at the end where we can maybe even turn off mics or create the opportunity for people to ask their questions, and we'll jump into it. But I want you guys, at any point in the conversation, if something doesn't make sense or if you want to know how it applies to you, don't hesitate to jump in with a question. So the first thing I wanted to talk about so that we have a context for our conversation is what is personal branding? And the fact of the matter is personal branding is the image created in a person's mind when they connect with your name, specific skills, and reputation. So hopefully the pop quiz that we started our presentation with makes a little more sense now, right? What is our name? What are the specific skills that we have? And what is the reputation that we've built for interacting with us? Now, why does this matter? Well, I think it matters for a couple of key reasons, especially sitting here in 2015. Number one, you are extremely unique. Now, what's fascinating is I know we've got a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of self-made people on the phone, and we're not always the best at believing this, right? Because to us, our uniqueness is very common. We wake up in the morning, we look in the mirror, and we're the same person. We live with that uniqueness 24/7, 365. So sometimes we don't notice just how unique or how special we are until we're either in a circumstance that calls us to notice it or a friend or a colleague points it out. And that's one of the key things about personal branding that I want to spend some time talking about today, which is what is your uniqueness, and are you even aware of your uniqueness? Additionally, a personal brand is extremely valuable. You know, this is the one thing that no matter what happens, they can't take it away from you. Right? You may be running a very successful business, and guess what? For things completely out of your control, you could lose the business. You could be a fantastic author, and Amazon could decide tomorrow, we're not going to do any more books that have the concept of black hole in the title. So Isaiah, you're out. And it's over. And it's like, there are things that other people can control or influence. What they can't impact is the personal brand that you build for yourself and the investment that you put into that and your ability to take that personal brand and add to value over time, as well as transfer that value between the various endeavors you're involved with. Next, I think a personal brand is extremely valuable because it's mobile. Now, I won't ask for a show of hands right now, but you know, if I were to ask you, is the thing that you're doing today the exact same thing that you were doing 5 years ago? Statistically, more than 75% of the people on this call will say no. For a lot of you, I could say, is the thing you're doing today different than the thing you were doing last year at this time? And you would say no. So the fact of the matter is, having a personal brand that can be mobile and can transfer as you as an individual grow, evolve, change, experience new things is extremely valuable and extremely useful. So now that we have kind of a general idea of what is personal branding, or at least a framework or context for our conversation, I want to dive right into what is your personal brand. So the good news is, when you signed up for the call, you already have a personal brand. Now, whether you think you do or not, whether you like that personal brand or not, those are separate conversations. But the fact of the matter is, sitting here today, you already have a personal brand. And again, as a reminder, it's that image that's created in someone's mind when they connect with your name, your specific skills, and your reputation. So first and foremost, let's look at names, all right? Now, when it comes to names, it's kind of interesting, and Jason, we'll do a little bit of a poll here. How many people that are on the call knew that this is my actual name? My actual name is C. Joseph Coleman III. Just chime in with yes if you knew that before right now.
I'm pretty sure we're going to get a lot of universal no's. And that's
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the crickets come in. Nobody's like, wait a second, what? I had no idea this was.
Well, Jim Umlauf said, Jim said.
Jim Umlauf, okay, right? Because Jim and I have had this conversation, but most people had no idea that this is my actual name. Now, let's just do a little quick experiment. When you see this name, if you didn't know me, you had never met me, and you got an email from someone that said, I'd like to have a conversation with you. My name is C. Joseph Coleman III. What image or what impression would you have of me before you even met me, just based on my name? Go ahead and type it into the chat. 1-word answers, 2 words. What things would come to mind? Just from this name.
We have lawyer, fancy, Irish, king's grandson.
There you go, king's grandson. It's interesting. That's one I always get to. It kind of sounds pretentious, right? It sounds a little snooty and a little, I don't know, uppity.
We also have Nigerian scammer,
Nigerian scammer. Okay, perfect. Love it. Exactly. So there are a lot of things that your name alone can indicate or can push the conversation in a certain direction. Now, for many, many years, I've gone by Joey. Now, the reason I go by Joey, especially since I know 90% of the people on this call, is because I think Joey more accurately encapsulates my personality than C. Joseph Coleman III. Now, and I say that with respect to my father, who is C. Joseph Coleman Jr., my grandfather, who's C. Joseph Coleman Sr. I say that with respect to them. I've always been Joey. And there was a small period in my life where I went by Joe, and frankly, it just didn't stick, right? Let me ask another question. I bet if I were to query you, and I'm not asking you to do this right now, to think up all the Joes and Josephs that you know in your life, you would come up with a half a dozen or so, right? Now, if I were to ask you, think of all the people named Joey that are over the age of 10, that are in your circle of peers. What names come to mind? Statistically, 2. In this crowd, Joey Tomanovich, because many of you had the chance to meet him at Mastermind Talks. Joey and I joke all the time that we're the only two guys we know that are over 40 that have Joey in our names. And you might kick over to like Joey Tribbiani from Friends, right? Maybe Joey Buttafuoco from back in the day, you know, or Joey Lawrence from the TV show. But there aren't a lot of older Joeys. Make no mistake about it. When I introduce myself as Joey, that is a conscious choice. By my name alone, I am already being able to jump in and own a piece of your brain associated with that word. Now, what's interesting is some of you, and I say this respectfully, have more common names. And you might be in this position where you're like, well, Joey, short of a name change, what am I supposed to do? Well, not to pick on anyone on the call, but one of the interesting things I've seen develop is Chris Yoko. Now, to a lot of people, Chris Yoko, who I know is on the call, they see his name and they're like, oh, he's Chris. But lots of times I've also heard him sign off things and seen him sign off emails just as Yoko. Now, again, when it comes to Yoko, he's just competing with one other name for his personal brand, right? And it's a pretty clear distinction between those two brands. Which one is the Chris Yoko we know and love, and which is the Yoko Ono, who, let's be candid, is definitely a personal brand and a character, but on the spectrum of how she shows up in her personality and how Chris Yoko shows up in his personality, pretty dramatically different, right? So the name is a great place to start. Let's jump into specific skills, though, and your reputation. Now, again, one of the areas where I find, especially when I do this with super successful people, and to be honest, I'm flattered by the people who signed up. I mean, Jason and I were actually on a separate call watching as everything came in, and I'm like, holy cow, that person's coming in for the call? Oh my gosh, that person has an incredible personal brand already. Wow, I'm excited. I'm flattered that that person is going to spend some time with us. So you already have these unique and specific skills. I'd be willing to bet, however, and this plays off a little bit of what Philip shared with us during his presentation at Mastermind Talks this year, that you're a touch bashful when it comes to sharing what you're really good at. If I were to say, you know, Daryl Hicks, what are you world class at? Or Sarah Stibbitz, what are you world class at? Or Bob, what are you world class at? You might not jump in with an answer right away. And by the way, I'm not picking on Daryl and Sarah and Bob. Specifically, I could say this, I think, about anybody on the call, that we have a tendency to believe that if we promote ourselves, if we say, no, I am freaking world class at this, that comes off as egotistical or egomaniacal or boastful or braggadocious. And, you know, something that, you know, somebody is like, I don't want to really be associated with that. When the reality is, when it comes to your personal brand, people are doing this already. It's just, is the word that is coming up in their mind the word you want to be associated with? I alluded earlier, you know, I used to be a criminal defense lawyer. I don't really want people to think of me as a criminal defense lawyer today, unless they're my closest, dearest friends, and they find themselves in the back of a police car. In which case, you bet your ass I want them to call me instead of somebody else, or better yet, call me instead of start talking to the police officer, right? So it depends on where you want to position your personal brand and which environments or which peer groups you want certain things to stand out. So let's do a little exercise, right? Hopefully you all have paper in front of you or a pen. And what I want to do is have you replicate this drawing, right? As close as you can. So just one circle in the middle, 6 little circles around it. So we'll take about 15 seconds and let you draw this. I thought about sending you the worksheet in advance or trying to pass it across. And I was like, let's let their artist personal brand come out a little bit in this exercise. Some of you are freaking out right now. You're like, oh my gosh, I suck at drawing. No, you don't suck at drawing. What actually happened is you went through a period of your life where somebody told you you weren't good at drawing, and now you believe them, and they were full of it. And please, it was first grade, so come on. So we'll draw this circle in the middle, and then we'll draw the 6 little circles around it.
See, I was the opposite. I thought it was much better at drawing art until I just came back from Philip McKernan's retreat in Ireland, and we had to paint. And it was
nice.
Neely and Lisa are phenomenal painters.
Nice. I love it. I love it.
Just wanted to fill some space.
I like it. So everybody's drawn this. Great. So the first thing we're going to do now is we're going to write our name in the middle. So this is, I know we've got some Canadians on the call. I don't know what the SAT equivalent in Canada is, but you know how when you take the SAT, you get bonus points for just writing your name. You guys are already get bonus points. So write your name in the middle of the box, in the middle circle. Now, when you write this, stop and think about, just write at face value. How unique is your name? Where are you at? You know, your last name is probably more unique than your first name, but your first name may be unique, and it may be what you're known by. Okay, so this is just our opening volley. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the name, but it's just something to kind of notice what comes up for you when we do this. All right, since you probably already have your names done, let's go ahead and fill in 4 of the little surrounding boxes or circles, 4 of those with a specific skill that you have. Okay, and please, this is not the time to be bashful or shy, right? I want you to fill in a specific skill that you have, and I want you to fill in 4 of the 6 boxes. Now, when you're thinking about this, try to write a skill that you're really awesome at. So like if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to write entrepreneur, that's fine, but there are a boatload of other entrepreneurs on the call. If you're going to write, well, I'm a nice person, well, guess what? There are a boatload of other nice people on the call. I want something that's really specific to you, really unique. Now, what's interesting is while we're talking, I'm clicking through and watching your faces. I don't want you to think this is weird, but some of you are having a harder time with this than others. Some of you are like, oh yeah, boom, I just write down my stuff. Others of you are like, wow, I'm not really sure. I don't really think of myself this way, or maybe I don't present myself this way when I'm in regular conversation. So because this is only for you and because we're not necessarily going to be sharing it with the rest of the group, go ahead and be a little bold. Write down that thing that you're really fantastic at. Oh, and by the way, when it comes to unique skills, it doesn't just have to be work related. Okay, you could have a unique skill, like I know, Sam, you're on the call. You could have a unique skill of being amazing at homeschooling your kids. And some people might look at that and say, well, that's a personal skill, not a business skill. Now, Sam has actually built an interesting business around her ability with this skill, right? But don't just limit yourself to the things that might show up as a bullet point on a resume or might be things that other people think are skills. You know, I've heard rumors, I don't know if it's true because I haven't had the pleasure of experiencing myself yet, that Tony is a fantastic cook. All right. Now, word on the street is the guy prepares a mean meal, right? That could be a unique skill that you have that sets you apart from the rest of the crowd. So we have all of our skills. Next, I want you to fill in the remaining 2 boxes with 2 things about your reputation. Okay? 2 reputations that you have. Again, these can be good reputations. They can be not so good reputations. It's up to you. We're filling in the reputation, and when we're all done, you'll have all 6 boxes filled in. See, some of you are done, some of you are still writing. Get all wrapped up here. Awesome. Now, if I may, and this will require a little bit of time potentially from the chatting, but type in what came up for you doing this exercise. Was this an easy exercise? Was this a difficult exercise? You know, all I ask you to do is write things about yourself. But there's usually, and I can see it on a lot of your faces as I click through the screens, a variety of emotions that are experienced. What came up for you doing this?
Do you want me to read them out?
Yeah, if you could, Jason, that'd be awesome.
So easy for Tony Guerreri, difficult for Dean Dwyer. Isaiah said it was easy. Ed said it was the hardest thing he's done this year. I gotta kick him off these things. It's such a shit. John Bowen said it's easy. Sarah said kind of difficult. Eye-opening, said Dr. Isaac Jones.
Awesome. Well, that gives me a general feel. So for those of you that said it was easy, not to call any of you out, but share 2 or 3 of the things you wrote down. Just go ahead and type them in. We'll see how easy it really is to share our personal brand with other people.
Oh, Ed said he wasn't being sarcastic, so that was actually a
Oh, awesome.
truth
Good.
statement.
Ed, I love the honesty. The joy of typing. You can't read tone. So
So Daryl says coaching, speaking, and analyzing. Isaiah says self-reliant, bold, positive, direct, strategic, energetic. Tony Greary said speaker, leadership, culture.
nice. So what's interesting here, because a lot of us know each other, okay? When you read the things that the other people wrote, my gut instinct is some of them you agree with. It may be the case that some of them you disagree with. But if we were to really boil it down as to what is the one word or two words associated with this person's personal brand, what would it be? Now, Tony, because if I may, because you and I have had some conversations about this, I'm going to use your example. So Tony included two things in his list. He had several, but two that I recall. One was speaker and one was culture. Now, what's really interesting is I think if you were to ask the average person that knows Tony, the average business person, the first thing of those two that they would pick on would be culture. That they would say, yeah, Tony has created an amazing culture at Roma Molding. He's built this amazing internal team. The way they live, the way they interact is really instrumental in the overall success of the brand. Now, speaker, what I love about that one being on there, and Tony, I'm so glad you put that on there, is because in some ways that's a newer element of Tony's brand. Tony's been a great speaker for a while, right? I mean, this isn't anything new for those of us that know him and have had the chance to hear him present. But this is an area where he wants to do more in the future. And so by saying, I am a speaker, it lets all the people on the call who didn't know that he was a speaker that is something he is and that he's good at. And if he already has a nice brand lift because of we know he's an expert in culture, we might naturally leap to, I bet he speaks on how to create an amazing culture at your business. Man, my business doesn't really have an amazing culture. I wish that it did. How could I bring in an expert? Wow, I could bring somebody like Tony in to talk and to work with me about how to create this in my business. So the reason I specifically pick out Tony in this example is it gives us the chance to recognize the things we write down can be aspects of our personal brand today, but we can also talk about aspirational aspects of our personal brand, where we want to go tomorrow. So when we kind of think through this list, we say, well, great, Joey, that's it. I'm done. I've already figured out what my personal brand is. Yep, I've got these 4 things and these 2 reputations, right? No, not at all. This requires time. It requires thought. What I try to do in this initial exercise is just to give you a little bit of a taste of what it is. And for some of you, that taste was not so palatable. You're like, oh, this is really difficult. This is hard. This is challenging. I encourage you to spend some more time thinking about it. And when you think about it, really anchor down into that Michael Jordan example. What is the one thing that you do that if I put you in a room with 1,000 other people, hands down, you would be able to say, I'm the best at this. And you wouldn't care who the other 1,000 people. I could pick any group of 1,000 people, put them in the room, and you'd be like, yeah, nope, I'm the best. And I feel that way. And I have that level of confidence, that level of assuredness, that level of excitement about what it is that I'm holding myself out as and presenting myself. So another thing you might want to consider, and I'm going to follow up with a little PDF for you guys of this so that you can have these cards to print them out. I actually go through this exercise on a pretty regular basis. I try to do it about twice a year where I think, how am I showing up in the world? What are the things that people are associating with my brand today, whether that's specific skills or my reputation? And do I like the way it's going or do I not like the way it's going? And so you can kind of check in on this regularly. Additionally, you can look at, well, what do other people think of your personal brand? So I'm going to include some cards like this. And especially for those of you that struggled a little bit with this exercise, this is a great opportunity for you to get some other people's input. Print these cards out and give them to your significant other. Give them to your sibling, your parent. Send them an email and say, hey, when you think of me, what are the first 6 things you think of? And just get their input. Sometimes the people around us, our loved ones, our friends, our colleagues, have a better idea of who we are and what our unique skills are than we actually do. And so if you get the opportunity to check in on those, I think it can be a really useful exercise. In addition, something that you might want to consider, and this qualifies more for those of you that thought this was a little bit easier than others, you might want to ask yourself, well, are my impressions of my personal brand the same impression that the rest of the world has? And so you might want to share this type of worksheet or this type of exercise with some other people, especially people that are kind of in your close circle who you know will be honest and share their true feelings, to say, well, do I really qualify as this? You know, for Isaiah, I think you mentioned one of yours was bold. You know, anybody that knows Isaiah, he's very bold. He's very direct. I think that's an awesome aspect of your personality. But I think if we had Isaiah and we were kind of talking through it, he might say, well, yeah, some people really like that. Other people don't. Now, what's fascinating about Isaiah and what I love about his personal brand is he acknowledges that and he's cool with that. Fact of the matter is, when you continue to build and develop and hone your personal brand and it becomes even more and more specific, there are going to be people that you run into that aren't as excited to run into you. Going back to the Michael Jordan example, you know, when Michael Jordan would show up for a pickup game, some of the people on the court would be like, sweet, we get to play against Michael. Other people would be like, you know what? Damn it. Why did I even come out today? I'm just going to get schooled by this guy. So sometimes your personal brand has really positive effects. Sometimes it can have negative impacts on the people you interact with. But at the end of the day, I think what's important is that you know what your personal brand is, that your personal brand is a conscious decision as opposed to a subconscious after effect, which is what most of the people who are walking around the planet today, what their personal brands show up as. It's just, well, I did this next, and I kind of built this reputation because I just went through my day-to-day life and I never really gave it any long-term thought. Okay? 3 additional resources you might want to check out on this, especially if you're struggling. Strength Finders, the most recent version of the book is Strength Finders 2.0. Fantastic book where it allows you to kind of identify what if some of your key strengths are. This is very much skews towards a business setting, but also very useful. On the other side, How the World Sees You by Sally Hogshead. Interesting book that just came out about a year ago, where you go through and you take some tests. They have an online assessment tool, and you're able to figure out kind of like, how do you show up in the world in terms of your ability to fascinate people? It's a really interesting lens on a long-going conversation, and I think it's a book that you would like. And Sally's just really fascinating, no pun intended, and intelligent about the way she built this entire system out. And then for those of you that know Steve Sisler, the DISC assessment is one of many, many assessments that you can do to help provide some guidance. Because lots of times, even if you think, hey, I've got a clear idea of what my personal brand is, it's a good idea to check in from time to time and make sure that your beliefs actually align with the rest of the world's beliefs. Let's jump to our last point we're going to talk about today, which is how can you share your personal brand with other people? The interesting thing about this is when it comes to your personal brand, it's the greatest show on earth. You are the ringleader at your own circus, right? This is your life. You get to decide how it's displayed. You get to decide how it's packaged. Now, what's interesting is when we think about the various vessels that we could package our message or our brand in, they're really limitless. And at every turn and each new year presents new technologies, new opportunities for us to kind of package our brand and present it to the world. To give you an idea of some of the examples, I mean, it could be as simple as, writing a book, e-newsletters, your website, a specific promise make, the clothes you wear, the stationery you use, a catchphrase, etc. There are a lot of different ways that your personal brand shows up. And right now, I would posit that the great majority of us look at the aspects of our business brand, maybe our website, maybe our logo or our stationery, and we say, well, this is who we are. But after that, once we kind of check those boxes, we step away from the conversation. Where we miss an opportunity is to say, well, how does that brand that is my business spill into the brand that is my entire life? And how is my personal brand maybe different than my professional brand? Sometimes they're in nice alignment. Other times they're a little bit different, and so how do we balance those? How do we present and package those in a way for everyone? So I wanted to close our time together by giving you a couple examples of people that have done interesting things around their personal brand. So one thing when it comes to your personal brand is you can have a specific promise. So let me ask you this. I don't know if any of you know who this guy is, and I'm not going to say his name, but from the very beginning of his introduction to the world and his taking himself public, he has been associated with one phrase, a specific promise. If you know what it is, type it in. Jason, tell me if anybody gets it.
So Bob says, I can make you rich.
I can make you rich, right? Exactly. Very close. It was, I will teach you to be rich. Now, what's interesting is Ramit Sethi, if you don't know Ramit, fascinating guy, absolutely a gem of a human being, ridiculously successful. Ramit came out of college, and even when he was in college, basically said, most of my peers don't know a damn thing about managing their money. They don't know how to take care of themselves. At best, they read this book that says, hey, buy one less latte a day and that'll make you rich. And he's like, that's ridiculous. When you're in your 20s, that's not the way your brain thinks. And yet when you're in your 20s, if you can establish some habits as it relates to your finances, it can be very successful long term. So he started writing this blog, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And the whole idea behind Teach You to Be Rich is I will share with you my experiences, the things I have done to help me save money, to help me make money, to help me grow my perspective on the impact money has in my life, to help me grow my perspective on what the definition of the word rich is. Now, see, I will teach you to be rich is something that's sexy, and it makes a lot of people go, oh, I want to be rich. And once Ramit gets in and starts working with you, he helps you to understand that the definition of rich is not necessarily your bank account. That's maybe a piece of it, but what is the depth of the life you're living? What are the experiences you are having? What is your peer group? What do your friendships look like? This has gone on to not only be a wildly successful book, but a multi-million-dollar online business where he has courses that teach everything from how to negotiate for a higher salary at your job, how to negotiate with your cable company to pay less for your monthly cable bill, all of these different guides and info products that are all about helping you to maximize your life experience. So the reason I give Ramit as an example is here's a guy who came out with a very specific promise. I will teach you to be rich. And has built an entire lifestyle around this specific promise. So much so that he gets a great shout out in Fortune magazine. They did, I think it was like an 6 or 8 page spread on this guy in Fortune. And this is not, as those of you that probably read Fortune know, they don't usually talk about internet entrepreneurs unless you're an internet entrepreneur who's gone public, right? I mean, that's not usually the way it works. And here they give this huge spread in the same issue where they talked about Warren Buffett being the guru for finance to the older crowd. They posited that Ramit was the guru of finance for the younger crowd. So interesting way to package your story. What about a catchphrase, okay? So does anybody know who's associated with Kick It Up a Notch? We're going to find a very subset.
I do, but I
Yeah, there you go. Jason knows.
Yeah, so Travis says Emerald Lagasse.
Emerald Lagasse is also known for BAM, right? So much so that they create this internet meme around him. For those of you that don't know, Emerald Lagasse, world-renowned chef, lots of restaurants, cooking shows on TV, the whole shebang. And he has these catchphrases that he uses when he's in the kitchen that have been so associated with him and so associated with his brand that when I say kick it up a notch, there were a group of you that immediately knew, oh, you're talking about Emerald. Now, there are some of you that didn't know who we were talking about, and that's okay, because guess what? You're not his tribe. He doesn't care. He has the catchphrases for his tribe, not for the world. So when you think about your personal brand, think about how am I playing in the world that's most important to me? If it doesn't extend much beyond that, that's okay. It's just we want to own that space in the mindset of the people that are most important to you. Let's give you another one. Anybody know who Michael Buffer is? Other than Jason? See if anybody types.
Steve Weaver says yes.
And answers. Okay, Steve Weaver says yes.
Chris
This
Yo-
might help a little bit.
Chris Yoko says let's get ready to rumble.
Let's get ready to rumble, right? This is what Michael Buffer is famous for coining. And what's fascinating is he started using this phrase in the boxing ring to start off matches. Let's get ready to rumble, right? And he had all this enthusiasm and excitement about it. He then went and trademarked the phrase. 5 words. Trademarked, have since shown up in over 20 movies, And the most recent data we have is 2009. It's now 2015. But as of 2009, his licensing of that phrase alone had earned him $400 million. Now, I don't share that to be like, oh, it's all about the money you make. It's all about the Benjamins, or it's all about coining a phrase. But just to show you how someone can build a personal brand around one sentence, right? There are lots of opportunities of which way you decide to go with your personal brand and how you decide to package it. So let's talk briefly about clothing, okay? Who has a guess as to who this is? I've covered the face. Again, we'll find out a specific subset. You'll notice I'm picking people from all different areas of life to use as our examples, because some of them you're going to know, others you aren't.
I didn't know who it was, but Payne Stewart.
Payne Stewart, exactly. Payne Stewart was famous for wearing +4s, that's what they call the pants, on the golf course. This is the old school way of golfing. This guy was a style horse on the golf course. There's just no doubt about it. And this is how he built out his brand. Let's do another one. Who's this?
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs, right? Really easy. What's fascinating is if you read the biography on Steve Jobs, they talk about the fact that after he passed away, I think they found just under 100 of the black mock turtlenecks in his closet that had never been worn. He had a very specific one that he purchased in lots of 200 or something like that. And that's all the guy wore. Now, some of you, and I say this, it could sound sexist, but it actually aligns with science, especially the women on the call, are going to look at this and be like, oh my gosh, how could I ever wear the same outfit day after day? And we also have people like Daryl Hicks on the call, who's just an amazing clothes horse himself, who I don't think has ever worn the same thing twice, let alone 2 successive days in a row. Your clothing can be part of the story of your brand as well and the image that it presents. We'll do one more. Anybody know who this is?
A little soft around the edges. I know that guy.
Look into it. There are 2 key elements of the clothing that should give away who it is, right? It's Jason. And the 2 key elements of the clothing are, we see the 5-finger toe socks that he's wearing inside his Vibrams, and he also has on a zip-up hoodie. Now, again, look at Jason. When I say this, Jason's kind of a little shy. He's like, oh, yeah, that's me. And how did I end up in the... Jason didn't see these slides before the presentation. But the fact of the matter is, the way Jason shows up, I mean, there have been I think there's been one instance where I've heard of him not wearing 5 fingers. I've not witnessed it myself. It's just that I heard a story about a time when he didn't, right? This is neither a good nor a bad thing, other than it's clearly a part of his brand. And Jason has decided to make it part of his brand. Let's finish with one more example from our community, a signature piece. I know a lot of you know John Ruhlin, okay? John Ruhlin has a business card that looks like this. For those of you that don't know, it's a little bit smaller than the average size of a business card. It's the same height, but it's shortened so that it's a square. And it's metal. And this has holes drilled into it, and it's etched with his name and its information on it. So if John ever gives you a business card, he hands you a piece of metal. This is a signature piece of who John is. Now, he does this for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's extremely unique and remarkable. Number 2, John is all about the high-end gift. He's all about spending the money on an interaction that is more than the average person would expect. You wouldn't expect someone to spend the money to give out metal business cards, but because he does give out metal business cards, you remember him. John is a fantastic guy, and he actually takes it one step further in that he has metal note cards, all right? And you see it's a larger version of his business card, and he takes a black Sharpie and he writes a personal note on the card and then mails you a piece of metal. Now, that's a huge personal brand tool and a personal brand experience, right? And when you get that, number 1, people keep these notes. They don't want to throw them away. And every time they look at that note, they're reminded of John. Again, some of these you may look at and you may say, well, Joey, that's a little too gimmicky for me, or, I'd like to wear different clothes. I don't want to have a signature clothing piece, or I'm multifaceted in my personality. I don't want to just be known for like one thing, like I will teach you to be rich. There are lots of things I want to be known for. Guess what? You're in charge of the message vehicles. You're in charge of being the one who's able to say, what do I want to do? How do I want to build this out? And what way works best with the brand I want to present? Quick aside. So it used to be whenever I presented, and some of you have seen me do this, when I would walk on stage, I wore colorful tennis shoes. I mean like crazy colorful tennis shoes. And one of my good friends, Derek Coburn, who I know a lot of you know, had a conversation with me at one point, and he said, Joey, here's the deal. I love the shoes. I know it's who you are. I know it's your brand. The problem is a lot of people in the ultra high net worth world are going to see you on stage and are going to tune you out because you wore tennis shoes to be the speaker at their event. So like if you're speaking to a group of financial advisors, they're going to be like, this guy's a joker. He doesn't understand our audience. He doesn't understand our clients. There's no way he would do this. Now, John Bowen, who's on the phone, was kind enough to invite me to present at one of his events, and I showed up not wearing tennis shoes, right? I wore dress shoes. I wore a collared shirt. In many ways, I tried to channel my inner Daryl Hicks and look cool and hip and professional, but with a flare of color and a little bit of flash. And what I realized is that the way I was showing up in my personal brand was being limiting to some other people. Now, you will never see me wearing standard black Oxford shoes, lace-ups, the traditional Savile Row style. No, my shoes have a lot of color. They have a lot of interest because I like to think it's a warning to the people in the audience that they need to buckle on, that things are going to be a little bit different or unique. But that's a piece of my personal brand that I've played around with and I've tweaked over time. So there's lots of opportunities to continue to choose the message vehicle you want and to evolve it in a way that will be useful to your brand. Now, I have talked plenty long enough. I want to use our remaining time for any additional questions, comments, etc. that we have on the call. So Jason, you can help me with the questions because I want to keep our screen up so I don't lose my screen.
So I will ask Isaac Jones's question, and then for those of you who want to ask a question afterwards, simply just unmute your mic. But Isaac asked, what if you're building a brand where you're hiring other experts to work with you, but your company is trying to maintain a particular brand? So I think that's a great question.
It's a fantastic question. So here's the thing. When we start to scale, Isaac has his own brand and he's built a company around it. But as he starts to hire other experts, what do? There's the answer of what the typical company does, and there's the answer of what I think the most enlightened companies in the world are doing right now. Let me answer first typical. The typical company tries to take that newly hired expert and force them under a brand umbrella, force them to show up in a way that is not authentic with who they are, force them to play by a general rule. Now, as a business owner and as a branding guy, I respect that it needs to be under the same umbrella. We need to have a level of consistency. But the most industry-leading, trend-setting businesses in the world are allowing their own employees to develop their own personal brands. Now, the brand certainly has to align with the overall company values. It has to fit under the overall company message and ethos and aesthetic. But giving them a little bit of a leash is going to do two things. Number one, it's going to make them show up more authentically than they otherwise would. Number two, it is going to dramatically increase the likelihood that you can keep them on staff and keep them part of your team. And number three, it's going to push your brand to consider new things that you might not have otherwise considered. It's a little bit more of a dangerous proposition, and it's not necessarily one that is going to be all rainbows and sunshine. But I definitely would encourage you to have an open conversation with them about the brand. Talk about what the key pillars of the brand that are not compromisable, that are not open for discussion, but then let them put their own little piece or their own little flair to it.
Does that make sense? Okay, I got thumbs up. 2 thumbs up
Good.
on that one.
Good. Perfect.
Isaiah asked, so how quickly or slowly do you change your brand? And a second question is that how often should you change your brand? James Altucher says every 5 to 7 years. Any rules of thumb?
Yeah. First of all, James is brilliant, as you guys all know. And I think his every 5 years is a great rule of thumb. I mean, you need to be refreshing your brand. You need to be bringing something new to the table. How often should you change it? I would posit you should change it anytime that you feel that your brand as it currently exists isn't presenting you in your ideal way or isn't in alignment with who you are. I gave the example of the changing the shoes for me. As I started to look, wait, I'm going to be in front of different audiences. Is there a way that I can keep the reason I wore the tennis shoes, which is something fun and playful and colorful, but not alienate my audiences by being on stage in tennis shoes? When do you make that change, and how quickly do you make that change? Instantly, overnight. I would recommend that you don't spend a lot of time worrying about, oh, well, I've got to get it just perfect and just right. Lean into it, experiment. What's fascinating is when we think of brands, we all have this tendency to think that it's this valuable thing that must be protected at all costs. And we have a brand style guide, and we talk about brands having value in an exit. Well, how much was their IP and their brand worth? And that affected the valuation of their company when they sold it. I agree with those things. And by the way, for over a decade, I've been a branding guy. I've been designing logos, websites, ad campaigns, all the style guides, all the tools of managing a brand. But what I think happens is people get so fixated in the old way of doing things that they miss an opportunity to create a new piece of their brand or to create something that's more interesting or more in alignment either with who they are or who they want to be. Sometimes you can create a brand and live into it. Right? They talk about this when you're looking for a job, right? Out of school. If you ever talk about anybody who's unemployed, they say, get up in the morning, take a shower, shave, put on a suit, and then go to the coffee shop or go to your kitchen table and work on your resumes. Dress the part of success. Dress what you want to be. So you can sometimes psychologically, and you guys know more than I do about this, Isaiah, but you can psychologically trick yourself into, I am part of this new brand just by the physical trappings I put on or the language I use or the way you show up. And that can propel you and catalyze you into living the new brand.
I'm just going to bring on Chris. Chris had a follow-up to that question.
Awesome.
Yeah, so to follow up with, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So to follow up with Isaiah's question, do you think there's a certain balance between kind of fake it till you make it versus like documented experience? For example, you transitioned through all the different careers you've discussed, and I was fortunate enough to know you as you were kind of going from designer to speaker. So how much do you kind of lead with, oh, I'm a speaker now versus the actual speaking experience?
It's a great question, and I think it depends, to be honest, Chris, on what the transition is, right? So for me, transitioning to speaking, some people looked at that and they're like, wait, how does the logo guy going to be the speaker guy? Well, the logo guy goes to being the speaker guy from the fact of the point of view that when he was the logo guy, he was still giving about 1 or 2 speeches a month. And prior to that, he was a criminal defense lawyer who tried over 200 cases. And prior to that, he was a consultant who gave probably 3 to 5 speeches a day, 4 days a week. So on one hand, to the world, it seemed like a big leap. To me, it didn't feel like a big leap. I think there's something to be said for the fake it till you make it mentality. I think we, as entrepreneurs especially, right, we have this tendency to, well, I don't want to put it out there until I've got the backstory behind it, till I've got the proof points behind it. And this gets into that age-old story of, well, I'd like the job. Well, you don't have experience. Well, yeah, but how am I supposed to get experience if you won't give me the job, right? So I think part of it is fake it till you make it. And I have a small problem with that phrase because what it implies is that you're being fake, right? I don't think it's being fake. I think it's showing up with a level of confidence and saying, you know what, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to provide a level of value and focus, and I'm going to put my blood, sweat, and tears into this. 9 times out of 10, that enthusiasm, that excitement, that drive will put you in the top 10% of people in any industry on the planet because they're actually not living their brand and their dream. They've kind of just been going through the motion. So lots of times, give me the guy who has enthusiasm or the gal who has heart or the person who's just all about like, hey, I know I don't have the track record, but I believe I can make this happen. I will take that person over the person who has the long resume list of accomplishments every day of the week and twice on Sundays.
Thank you.
Cool, no problem.
We'll bring on Tony. Tony had a question. There you go.
Cool. Mine is in the realm of success leaves clues. Who in your mind, Joey, do you feel has a great personal brand and is really killing it around that world?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think you can find wonderful personal brands, Tony, in pretty much every area or every industry of life. And they're usually the people that are kind of standing out. So let me give you a couple examples. I'll go real quickly to Tiger Woods, right? Tiger Woods had this brand image that I am the world's best golfer. I am polished. I am in control. And then the wheels fell off. And I think what happened when the wheels fell off is we realized that there was this part of his personality that he had been keeping very secret, that had been very controlled, that had been very pressure filled. And once some of that came out, it swept across his entire world, right? Sponsorships, how he showed up on the golf course, how he showed up in relationships, et cetera, et cetera. So you can look at an example like that of somebody whose personal brand really took a dive for the worse. Then look at someone like Martha Stewart, who had built this very much, I am the homemaker, I am the person who's constantly baking cookies and arranging flowers. And next thing you know, she's in prison. And it's like, whoa, wait, what? How did that happen? Now, if you've had the chance, and it is 100% wholly inappropriate, but I highly recommend it, if you get the chance, Google Martha Stewart's roast of Justin Bieber and watch the speech she gave. She is creating a new brand for herself. And that new brand is bitch that been to prison. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. And she's owning it, and it's absolutely hysterical. Now, is that costing her some of her audience? Sure. But is it picking her up new fans? Absolutely. Another person who I think has a really fascinating personal brand, and this ties back a little bit to Isaac's question about hiring people, is Richard Branson. Right? Richard Branson, I know many of you have probably read his book, Losing My Virginity, which is a great story of how he built the Virgin brand. But here's a guy who has hundreds of companies that are associated with his brand, and really all he's providing, and I say this not to be critical of Richard, because I think he provides a lot of business acumen and skill, but what he's really providing with the Virgin name is that little bit of pixie dust, that little bit of special something where you're like, if I've never been on an airplane, let's say pretend I've never been on a Virgin flight and I get ready to get on the plane, I just know it's going to be different, right? Because I've experienced other elements of his brand. I'm going to Chicago this month for a wedding, and the wedding is happening at this hotel at a Marriott downtown. We're going to stay at the new Virgin Hotel in Chicago just because I want to experience it. Like, it's more expensive than the wedding hotel. It'll be more annoying to travel to the wedding hotel, the whole thing, but I want to experience the brand. So those are a couple that come to mind. LeBron James has done some really interesting things with his brand in recent years. If you look at some of the pro fighters, the world of boxing is just full of fascinating personal brands. The world of music is full. I mean, Britney Spears, talk about somebody who had one brand. Hey, I'm in the Mickey Mouse Club. And then it's like, no, I'm wearing clothing that has less fabric than the typical washcloth. And then it's like, no, I'm now, dressing up and being more professional. And now my brand is one step out of a trailer. And now my brand is back in Vegas and polished and glitzy and glamorous, So, and it kind of goes to Isaiah's question. You can change the brand like this. Sometimes the brand change occurs because of external forces. Other times it's a conscious decision. I would argue that it's much better to have your brand shifting be a conscious decision than one that happens because of the result of external forces.
And Isaiah just brought up another great one, Angelina Jolie.
Angelina Jolie, exactly. I mean, boy, talk about somebody. Look at what her brand was when you go back to films like Gia and when she was dating and married to Billy Bob Thornton. I mean, she had a brand that was kind of the rocker, back of the bike, hey, I'm wild, I'm crazy, I'm punk. And now she's a spokesperson for the United Nations. I mean, seriously, that's an arc. Madonna, another one, perfect example. We go from, like a virgin to Material Girl to Kabbalah and writing children's books to back making out with, people on stage when she's presenting awards. And so she just has taken her brand and played all kinds of fun tricks.
I'm going to have to get you off your soapbox. I'm going to do one more question. Just because
I don't have any strong feelings about this topic.
It was Lisa.
Awesome. Since Lisa was the first one on the call, I'm glad we're finishing with a question from you, Lisa.
There we go. You should be unmuted. Hold on here. It's not unmuting for some reason.
Lisa, we want to hear your question.
I do know what her question is. It's just unfortunately our screen's not unmuting. And her question was was around actually URLs, which was a great question. Hold on here. How important is a personal URL? Suggestions if it's not available.
Yeah. So great question. And
if you have kids, secure their domain names as soon as possible. I mean, in regards, I'm going to say something for once here.
Nice. Yeah. Jump in.
When somebody just crosses me in business, if they don't own their personal domain name, I secure it because then I own them online. And I won't do anything with it particular, but if shit hits the fan, I'll throw up a web page that says this person's a scam artist or whatever the case may be. It is an incredibly powerful tool. So, in regards to domains, when Ava was born, as soon as we figured out her name, before she was born, I secured the domain name. I secured her Facebook page, Twitter handle, all that kind of stuff. So that'll alleviate some of that stuff. But Joey, love to know.
Right. No, and I agree. I mean, as a super brief aside, we are spending hours right now coming up with a name for our baby that's going to be born in November, and trying to come up with ideas of a name that is unique and is going to be different. Because I agree with Jason, in the future that is going to become more and more relevant. Lisa, so and I'm happy to have a conversation separately about this with you. Obviously, if you can get your name.com, that is the goal. A variation on your name. If you have a name that is more common, and yours kind of falls respectfully in the middle, right? It's not entirely rare, but it's not entirely different or unique. So you're probably going to have a little bit of a challenge finding one. I would look at, what do you want the brand to be, and I do think it makes sense to have your brand somewhere online that is you personally, that is independent from your business. To give you guys an idea, I'm launching a new website coming up here soon, and it's going to be joeycoleman.com. I'm not going to have Design Symphony is going to funnel to that. All of my brands are going to funnel to my name because I don't know what I'm going to be doing 5 years from now. To pull a page from James Altucher, I may rebrand as something entirely different, but I seriously doubt I'm going to change my name. So that's where I'm going to put all of my effort, all of my IP in one spot. Now, it's going to be a little confusing when people come to the page and they're like, wait a second, first 100 days, personal IPO branding. What? How did those do? And the other thing I'm working on is, how to get out of a speeding ticket, because I've been pulled over 80 times and I've only gotten 6 tickets and only 3 of them stuck. That's another piece of my personal brand, right? But that's all part of Joey's story. So being able to put it all under there. So Lisa, I feel like it's not the best answer to your question, but if you wanted to dive deep and kind of explore some options, just send me a message. We'll set up a time to chat. Happy to do that. Because you can get creative with, thisislisa.com. That might be available. Or I'm the real Lisa. Or the one and only Lisa Ferguson, or the LisaFergusonYouKnow.com. I mean, you can play around with a lot of these things. And Chris Yoko is probably a better guy to go to than me, but I feel like there's very much a trend in the world of URLs to have sentences as your URL or something that's more easily remembered. And so if you wanted to, I will teach you to be rich.com. That's what Ramit went for, because nobody knows how to spell Ramit and fewer people know how to pronounce or spell Sadie, which is his last name. So he was like, I'm going to make this easy for the folks that don't speak Indian and have Indian names or speak Hindu. So we're going to just go with, I will teach you to be rich. I want to be respectful of folks' time, so I'm guessing, Jason, we need to move on to a super quick recap.
Joey Coleman, yeah, I guess in Joey Coleman fashion, I was not expecting a recap. So
it's a super fast recap. So we talked about 3 things, right? What's your personal brand? What is personal branding? What is your personal brand, and how do you package it? Again, remember, this is the image created in someone's mind when they connect with your name, specific skills, and reputation. Name is the easy one to gloss over, but there's some opportunity there. Specific skills, you got to get specific and super detailed. It's not enough to say entrepreneur. Dive deeper, force yourself to spend more time. And reputation, what is the reputation you've built? This is not a time to be bashful and shy about your skills, because you are in charge of the vehicle that you decide to present your personal brand with. At the end of the day, you're the CEO of the brand called you. And some of you are amazing CEOs in your businesses, but we could all probably stand to spend a little more time being CEOs of our personal brands. You guys have been awesome. Thanks.
cool. Now, a few quick things. Actually, when you said the comment about the name and how you're Joey and not Joseph Coleman III, what have you.
Yeah.
I forgot that in the at a retreat, I was surprised. We were like 12 or 14 people, and like 3 people changed their name legally, which I had no clue because of that. And then one person from that retreat onwards changed his name. So it's interesting, and it's definitely something to think about. And I love also the how we kind of tied in Ramit Sethi in regards to the URL thing and how I will teach you to be rich. It's almost like Emerald's BAM or that kind of stuff. So definitely interesting stuff. And also in regards to the I know you talked about like disc profile tests. And Sally Hogshead, like her Fascinate test and stuff like that. At one point in time, I had a bunch of free promo codes or free test codes or stuff like that.
Oh, right, for Sally.
I'm going to see if I still have them. If I do, I'm going to send them to everybody. If you want even more in-depth, Steve Sisler is fantastic at this stuff, who was part of the Mastermind Talks community at one point in time. And I'll share the link with you guys. That was all great stuff. So
Cool.
Awesome, my friend. Well, thank you all for coming on and staying a few minutes late. And we'll see you on the next. I don't even know. I should have pulled up the next one. That would have been smart. I don't even know when the next one is. I don't know what it's about. It's going to be amazing. That's all I'm going to say. So, all right, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Yeah, bye.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Joey. See you guys.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Good seeing you, Lindsay.
You too, Joey.
Good seeing you, Joey. Great job, bud.
Take care, Tony. My pleasure. Good chatting.
Bye, Jace. Take
See you,
care.
buddy.
Thanks so much. Have a great night.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
And then there were 3. Dean, find a house or something. Jesus
It's a
Christ.
private session with Dean.
Sorry, I was trying to figure out how to unmute my mic. I'm at Starbucks, so I was sitting on the floor for like the first 45 minutes because it was packed.
Nice.
Thank you.
Good seeing you,
Thank you,
Dean.
Joy. That was fantastic. Thank you so
Good. Glad you enjoyed. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, see
much. I
you.
got to figure out how to get off.
I'll kick you off. Don't worry. Watch. Remove. All right, Joey. Do you want to connect on Skype real quick?
Yeah, I'll give you a call.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.